I want to welcome you to the Saab and Travel Show. I'm Glenn Brooks. I am a Saab fanatic, enthusiast, appreciator. And, you know, it's been a way of life, I guess, ever since I discovered the car. I just appreciated the quality of people. I appreciated the creativity. I asked a woman at a health spa, world-class health spa yesterday, I said, well, do you want to be if you could be a car, what would you be, a Saab, a Mercedes, or a BMW? And she said, I want to be a Saab. I said, wow. So Saab, I guess the mystique and also the caring. And I'm honored to be doing this series along with Scott Patterson, who owns and founded SaabNet since 1988. Been one of the most significant connections to me in the Saab world. The quality of people, the conversation. And early on, when I found Scott's site, SaabNet, saabnet.com, I had the honor of meeting Walter Wong from Los Angeles. And he represented to me, well, I call him a Saab Jedi. He not only knows the car, he actually represents to me the Saab culture, which is really a culture of caring, listening, kind of innovation, and wisdom. And the kind of things is an example that when one of the engineers was killed at Saab by hitting into a reindeer, they developed one of the safest roofs to this day. So on these shows at Walter, I love the fact his business philosophy, what he shares in conjunction with keeping these wonderful cars going strong, is just so, it moves me, because the kind of people that got into Saab really, I think, were looking for this car that was innovative, that was amazing in road rallies, but it was also a different kind of community. And I think you'll feel that as you listen to the words of wisdom and insight from Walter Wong of the right solution. And what is the right solution? We got to start off with that one. Walter and Scott, welcome. I'm glad we're doing another edition. And I want you guys to feel part of this. I want you to respond a little, somewhat into the program. I'm going to give you some things we're doing around reviewing products. And I'm making Walter an official review and test center. And same thing with Chris Riven in Vermont. Because I'm really curious what parts and things really keep these cars purring and going strong. I'm going to talk to you about those. Let's get into this idea of the right solution. Because there's a lot of solutions for Saabs out there. A lot of them are not correct for Saabs. A lot of the problem I see with Saabs is that you're taking them to people that either don't know Saabs or don't know what they're doing, and they don't know the right solution. So let's start there, Scott. Welcome, Walter. And let's talk about this notion of the right solution, which you've been coming back to, and which is also the name of your business. Okay.
Hello, everyone. The reason for that, for the name, is just some kind of joke, some kind of humoristic, because the initial idea was right solution for a Saab story. That was the name that I chose at that time. And my accountant told me that, well, that's going to be on problem. So yes, we live on the right solution. And what happened is, Saab is not a difficult car to fix or to repair or to keep it running. The only thing that we need is a little bit of common sense to see how they build or how they design the car. And then it's very easy to do the work on it. That's normally on any kind of Saab. And the culture that you've been talking, long time ago when I started working for Saabs, that was on 81. I've been 21 years old. At that time, I used to be a technician, a mechanic working on European cars. And I noticed the quality of the owner is different. People who own Saabs, that's a pleasure to talk with them, compared to those times with Mercedes or BMWs. So start having too many technicians specialized on Mercedes, BMWs. So I chose Saab because I didn't know any kind of independent Saab place. So that's the time when I decided to work as a janitor, as a helper at a Saab dealership. And I've been learning every trick from the best mechanics there. And that's the kind of thing. So I learned from the best. And then apply that kind of thing to every one of my customers and people who ask over the phone as well. is a function of love, I can tell you. Go ahead.
You know, Walter, I think there was so many times in the early years that I would call you because I didn't know what to do in certain situations, and because all around me there were mechanics that didn't know Saabs, and they would tell me just recently they would tell me it needed things that it didn't seem to need because they didn't know the car. You know, a lot of people watching this might be on SaabNet as an example because they want to buy their first Saab, or they want to buy one of their children a Saab. What would you want to share with them about this extraordinary car as a new vehicle to them? You know, like they haven't got a Saab before. What would you want to let them know if they're on SaabNet and they're seeing this?
Are you talking about a specific car, a specific model type?
I think that some people probably go to SaabNet as an example because they're looking for another car, and maybe some of them, you know, never drove a Saab before. What would you want to share with them about a Saab?
Okay, we've been talking with you related about the Saab 9.3, the sports sedan type. Do you want to go on that topic?
Yeah, we could do that. So I've been talking to Walter. I've been driving a 9.5, which is a bigger sedan, and it comes in a 5-speed and automatic. And I was considering. Let me see. I actually had one 9.3, which is a smaller sedan. It was a stick. I loved it. I bought that car with an oil leak from a Saab mechanic, and you know he never figured out that oil leak, and I lost that car because I lost the oil, and it was one of those things. I missed that car, so that car was a little bit more of an athletic drive. How would you distinguish between? So the 9.3 is the smaller, and some people feel is the more sportier car. How would you distinguish between those two cars, the 9.5, which is the little bit bigger sedan, and the 9.3? I've heard different things through the years about what makes them distinct. What would you say?
Well, in my personal opinion, the Saab 9.5 is a continuation for the great 9000. So share a lot of things about the space, the comfort, and everything. So when we reach some kind of age, we want something quicker. We want a lot of leg room, a lot of belly room, like this kind of thing. And just to have a very happy ride on that. The 9.3 is a car designed for, I think, for the new generation, because most of the 9.3s that I have as a customers, they're coming for people under 40 years old, most of them. Saab 9.5 is not about that it's an old person car, but it's going to be most likely, if you used to drive a 9000, you're going to be happy with a 9.5. That's what I can tell you about what kind of cars. The 9.3 is equivalent to the classic 900 at some point. So it's a smaller car, it's a thinner car, a little bit bumpy. And in case, for example, in my case, I'm overweight, and I do not feel very, very good more than 2 hours driving on a 9.3. At 9.5, yes, I can open more my legs and start driving with more. I feel better on the 9.5. Now, talking about, do you want to talk about what to do on the 9.3? About to keep the car reliable, inexpensive?
Yeah, let's get into the 9.3 because there's a lot of 9.3s. I think from my recollection, there's an example. There's one car, $6,000. What year is that dang car? I think it's a 2006. I believe it's a 5-speed. It might be. Is it a 5-speed or a 6-speed? 5-speed or could it be a 6-speed?
There are 5 and 6.
Okay, this is a 6-speed, and this car is very fast. And this gentleman, his name's David. We had some good conversations, and I think on that car as an example, and I know you'll know, what are the two things? Like there was a couple of things that really need to be in good shape. Is it the timing belt? What are the things on that car that really you need to see? The thing about there's a distinction between a timing chain and a timing belt. So I think someone was saying on the this is a 6-cylinder car. So one of the things that I thought was interesting, Walter and Scott, was that on a 6-cylinder car, that if you don't change that timing belt, you could damage the engine, which surprised me that Saab That was
That car,
surprising.
well, there is one thing. Sorry to interrupt you here.
That's all right.
The Saab with a timing belt was a 9.5 or 9,000 3-liter engine.
Okay.
The V6 on the 9.3 is the same as a Cadillac engine. So that's with a chain. So the best way that I think I can try to talk on this program is about anybody with a 9.3. What kind of things are the typical symptoms that lies and you end replacing something else and it stays with the same symptom or the same problem? Would you like to go on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can go, so starting from the back of the car, Saab 9.3, without exception, wears out more the inner brake pad than the outer. So if you are going to look at the brakes on the 9.3, do not trust the outer pad, the easy one that you can see through the wheel.
Huh.
Just get a small mirror and check the inner pad. Chances are that's the part where it breaks and it starts making, well, just start making contact metal to the brake rotor. Noises. Sometimes when you pass some bumps, you have a pump or some kind of noise on the back. And the first thing that you do is to replace your shocks. Once you replace the shock, you still have the noise. The noise is on the upper trailing arm bushing. That's located on the rear wheels, on the upper part where you have the knuckle. And there is a little bushing there, a piece of rubber bushing, and that part wears out very quick. So you have a little bit of play. And that kind of thing wear out the tire with the same pattern as a bus shock. So I have customer cars with brand new shocks, heavy duty shocks, sporty shocks, and they still have the noises. And they replace the shocks under warranty and still have the noise. And the problem is the silly bushing.
What's the difference in price?
Well, to replace both bushing is going to be about $400, including the alignment, and the alignment that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I put about a 1 degree negative camber, so the car is going to have a better handle. And just to get the normal shocks or the normal struts, depends about the kind of thing. Going forward on the car, here in California, we do not have too many problems about rust underneath. So, hey, Scott, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so underneath the car, just open the doors when the car is on the hoist or on a jack. Try to see if you have some kind of rusty spots and clean that with a paper clip or something like that. Going forward to the front suspension. Sometimes when you turn the steering wheel, you have a small click similar to crack your fingers like this. And that kind of thing is coming from the anti-sway bar links. So those are very little link for the sway bar and makes a little bit of clack, clack. And it's an ugly noise, but everything in the visual inspection looks okay. That's on the front. Another thing to do on those cars is about, on the 4-cylinder engine, is about the typical water pump leak. As you heard me before, things on Saab, I am not going to start being crazy replacing every little pump with a small leak or a small seepage over there. So you need to check the pattern from where the water or the coolant is coming, and tell the driver, tell the owner, okay, just to keep refilling, because it's not a problem to have that kind of little leak. Except the problem is when you do not open the hood and you do not refill with water or coolant. That's on that part. Another kind of problem on those cars is about when you start the engine, you put the air condition on, you put the car in drive, and you have a thumping noise like that. And that kind of noise seems like it's coming from the air condition compressor. Most likely, the air condition compressor drags a little bit on that, but the noise is coming from the drive belt tensioner. drive belt tension. And that's a little device that is spring-loaded with a friction, and that part many times makes a kind of noise. So that we do here is, if the belt is still okay, because the belts last a long time, we just replace the tensioners on that. In order to reach the tensioner, you must remove the engine mount.
Mm-hmm.
On the engine mount, it's okay to leave it when it's a little bit weak, and when it's broken, replace it. E-Gyro parts have an excellent mounts for that. If you decide to do not replace it, or the budget is tight, then that you are going to do is to remove the plastic cover on top of the intake manifold, and you will see the upper radiator hose. And that hose is a fixed hose that comes with a very little nipple that goes to the coolant container, expansion tank. That part is made of plastic, the letter T. And if you have a weak engine mount, to replace the engine mount is going to be maybe about $150 or something like that. If you do not have the money to do that, the thing that I want you to do is to replace the hose coupler with a brass type. There's also on subnet someone who make a very nice connections on that. So replace that part, because it's dangerous for your engine. That when you are going to have a peak of pressure, when you want to drive very, very fast, the car needs to deliver more heat. More heating means more pressure. The engine jolts, the part breaks, and you are going to end overheated in the middle of nowhere. So replace that kind of thing with the best part, and that's through subnet. I saw they sell that. I make my own ones here.
What is it called again, Walter?
Upper radiator hose coupler, or joint, or something like that.
For those that are new to the 9.3, how would you describe the drive? Like, what would you want to share with people about the drive of that car, and who it would best fit? Like, how do you see that car in terms of drivability?
In terms of drivability, well, it's a very good car, because both of my sons, they drive 9.3s. So Guillermo, the eldest one, he drove a 2008 6-speed with a 6-cylinder engine, and that car is huge. It's very, very fast. And we replaced the clutch once with a high performance clutch. It was a big mistake.
Why?
Because the car, it makes a lot of noises in the way how he driving stop and go traffic. So we put him back the normal clutch.
Oh, wow, okay.
That's one of the things on that car.
Mm-hmm.
V6 have the typical problem about the code 4 fuel pressure regulator. So you replace the fuel pressure regulator, the car is coming back. You replace the fuel pump, and sometimes came back. So if you do not need emission inspection, smoke check in California, just leave it like that, because the car keep going and going and going, except if you're a very crazy driver. In that case, you must install some kind of sensor to check how the combustion is. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, for any kind of everybody else, they're not going to feel the difference. That's on the 6-cylinder, and just we put a high quality ceramic pads. Our favorite is Akibono.
How do you spell that?
Akebono.
And this is the brake you're talking about?
That's a brake pad, yes. Okay. It's the ceramic brake pad.
A couple of shows ago, you talked about wise investments, what really matters. You made it a point to say that don't invest in the this is the brake pad, correct?
That's correct. This is the brake pad.
Making a distinction by saying don't go to these places that replace it inexpensively, the whole brake. Invest in very good brake pads.
Well, what happened is this. On the brakes, you have always friction. That's how the car is slowed down. So to put the car slow, you need to dissipate heat. And the heat is coming from the brake rotor and the brake pad. Once you have the normal quality brake, that's a very aggressive on the brake rotor. And as I told you, one of the things that I do here is to offer to every one of my customers the things that I already been been using in my own cars. I've been using another kind of brake pads, and for my point of view, with ceramic premium brake pads, type 4 brake fluid, you have excellent braking, and without using the ABS, you have a lot of confidence on your brakes and do not fade as another kind of normal brakes. Plus, we have the bonus that we can save the money instead to replace the rotors, and those are gentle with the rotors. That's my reason about that kind of thing on the brake pads. Going with the sports sedan, going back with that, when you have a dead battery, that's very, very important. When you have a dead battery, do not jump start the car.
Really? Well, okay,
so the point is this: if the battery is dead and you want to jump start very quick, like you know, the people who want to help you. Oh, I help you right away. Let's install the jumper cables.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. If the battery it is a little bit alive, so you can see, for example, dim lights. That's okay. That's okay. Remove the key. Put the key in your pocket. Hook up the parts, the jumper cables.
Yeah.
And start talking to the good Samaritan, to the good guy for about 10-15 minutes before to crank your car.
Really? That long? That long?
Yes. There is one fuse. I don't remember the number of the fuse that's located on the when you open the door. I don't remember that one at this time.
Yeah.
Remove that because that protect all the kind of electronics on the what's the name of the part in top of the dash? Infotainment or something like that. And then you can start the car, leave the cars connect to the donor car for maybe about 2 or 3 minutes, then remove the jumper cables. And that's the best way to have the car. Otherwise, you're going to end with the bad computers as consequence from that.
Let's go slow. I want to make sure I'm catching this. So it's not a good idea to get your car jumped with someone else who has a good battery, let's say, without, first of all, did you say let the cars be connected 10-15 minutes or no? Did you say that?
Yes, what I said is every time when one of my customers call me, hey, I have a dead battery, I'm going to take the car to the shop. Yes, okay, that's fine. What are you going to do? I asked them. I'm going to call AAA. Okay, perfect. Just tell the guy on AAA, remind him, gentle, because those guys knows a lot. And sometimes they do not want a cute girl to tell them, hey, you know what, connect the wires or the cables, just wait a little bit until the car, the weak battery recharge a little bit. So when you crank, it's not going to be a peak of surge on the computers, and that kills the parts.
Fascinating. So when the AAA person comes, let's say we use a road club, any number of clubs.
Yeah, the roadside assistance.
Roadside assistance, because we might actually have a sponsor that's another one besides AAA. So when they come, let them. How long should they leave the cables on for?
If the battery is weak, I suggest to be safe for about 10 minutes. Start talking very nice with them, so it's not going to be just 10 minutes looking at the dead battery.
Okay.
It's going to be just try to
to
do it in that way. You are going to protect your car.
So you can really damage it by
yes, I saw bad computers, bad kind of things, and that kind of thing. Wow. That kind of thing is.
Is it common?
Yes, it's common.
So you could damage an expensive computer just by getting it jump started too quick.
When the battery is very low, yes.
Okay. All right.
It's going to be a peak of surge on that.
Okay.
When you get the batteries, try to get the batteries with the highest cold cranking amps. The one we use here, those are Delco with 42 months warranty, and that kind of battery is very good. Very good on that.
Spell Delco.
Delco is a DELCO.
Okay.
Delco.
Okay.
That's the kind of batteries that I notice. For me, they give me excellent warranty because not like another kind of brands that I've been using, and they're prorated and blah, blah, blah. So if I want warranty on something, I want just a free replacement and just.
Yes, I do too.
I do not want to have a 7 years warranty and then they're going to make on the with the calculator. Oh, I have to pay $42.50.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
For me, it's everything.
The battery replaced.
Old-fashioned way.
Yes.
That's the warranty that I want to use on everything. And,
yeah, me too.
okay, so that's about the internal part of the car. Another thing that we notice here with a big rain is when you have a small leak, and that kind of thing is new for us. When you have a small leak through the door seals or something, it's a very good idea to invest. See the paper towels?
Yeah.
Okay, invest on this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Keep it in the trunk. And when it's going to rain, put underneath the seat on the driver's side, on the passenger side. So by the next morning, if the towel is wet, it's not going to kill the amplifier for the radio.
Oh, wow.
That's the kind of thing that I learned here because never rains here in Los Angeles until the last days.
So pretty much
new
fold up a paper towel and put it under the driver's seat and the passenger seat.
That's correct. On the back, underneath the seat on the back part, and that's where the water gets collected. So by the next day, if the paper is wet, well, try to dry that kind of thing, or to put something to absorb the moisture, because it's something that is going to be making damage on that. That's new for us in Los Angeles. I think that's normal in the East Coast.
Very normal. We actually had a tornado in this area. And we get thunderstorms. We get these rainstorms that get several inches. So pretty common.
Yep.
Pretty common. Okay.
So those are the kind of things about cars like this. When you have the pinch of protection on the window, so it means when you have the automatic going up window and move all the way up and then lows a little bit. There is one way that my technicians here, they want to do it, removing the fuse and relearning in that way. My way, because you know that a very practical way, is to put the window all the way down, then put the hands like this on top of the window and tell the driver to move the window switch to the up position. Count 3 seconds, 1, 2, 3, release that, and then the little computer is going to learn. It's going to be in a manual mode going up. After 3 cycles, we'll know how much is the maximum. And then you can recalibrate that. Problem with that kind of system is excessive resistance from the guides on the glass. So the computer assumes that a baby just put the hand on that side. That's the kind of thing that you are going to deal with an older Saab. And it's not a reason to start spending money on that.
You know, I just want to say that Click and Clack, or the Car Talk, when the 900 Saab came out, they said it was one of the most reliable, safe cars on the road. And I watched this when I was talking to Scott a few days ago. I rewatched. I hadn't seen this in so long, but I remember it. But I watched when they put the BMW on the crane, like 25 feet up in the air, and they put the Saab, the 900, I believe it was a 900, and they dropped them hood first, and the BMW pancakes. It just collapses, and the Saab bounces, and you can still open the doors. And I was like, what a revealing! Saab was brilliant. Saab was so. What's an ultimate driver of it pancakes if the driver dies? So a lot of brilliance in the 900. Is the brilliance of the 900 still in the 93? Is that still? Are you excited about the structural safety and soundness of that 93?
There is something on the new cars. Every car is using less metal, and every car is using a lot of airbags. And that's a kind of protection, because it used to be something as strong as a cage. Now you have a airbag all over the place to protect this, to protect the shoulder, to protect the sides, the back, the head.
Yeah.
And that's why the cars, they pass the safety test, not because the car is very strong itself, it's because protect the people. Now, when you have an accident like that, you need to replace the car because it's too expensive to replace every airbag. That's what I noticed on the low price cars. Well, protect the people. Yes, that's right. And the newer cars, they are not with a physical skeleton like the old ones. Remember that Saabs, they used to have a cage on the body.
Wow.
Even when you remove the door panel, you have a beam on the side for side impact. On new ones, you have the airbags on that.
Even on, so the 9.3s are more airbag versus cage.
Any kind of car, yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's the normal kind of thing from the car makers. They need to go in that way because if you compare the old Saab, yes, the old Saab is strong. The new Saab protect better. So
oh, they do. Okay.
Well, they protect better because you are in a cushion, you are inside a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And the old one avoid to enter too much the another car.
All right, I got a question for you.
Tell me.
The question. Well, okay. So first of all, I want to acknowledge 4Mil. 4milmotors.com. That's FORMEL motors.com. FORMEL motors.com. And Mark's the owner over there. Great guy. I learned about 4Mils from a Saab mechanic here on the East Coast in Armenia, who's quite a character. He's working on Saab 40 years. And so I go over to 4Mil sometimes, and I've gotten used parts. You know, as an example, I've gotten, mirrors and windows and not windows, but I guess, is it windows, the
window regulator.
Yeah, exactly. All kind of things. So, and I love 4Mils. I'm going to give out their number, too, because they ship all around the country. They're at 413-528-9424. 413-528-9424. And I love going out there. And I sometimes walk around the junkyard, just look at the Saabs. And it's just really fun. So what I was curious about, and a lot of people I think wonder this, or it might occur to them, when do you use a used part, and when does it make sense to invest in a new part? Because I know you're going to have some input on this. What's your take about that? For people that want to keep their Saabs, because we know that a lot of original Saab parts are very well made, and I see on the Saab that a lot of people were complaining, as an example, or were concerned about the imitation or the DI cassettes that were made in China, saying that they're junk, that they might be half the price of the original. So when does it make sense to get a used part? Because every used part I've gotten for 4Mils has held up. So I'm just curious what your take is.
Well, as a rule, that we do here is whatever is on the body, any kind of door, hood, side windows, seats, or whatever you want that they do not wear out too much, even wheels, if those are straight, just use parts.
Okay.
Now, when you are going to do, for example, the front suspension on the new generation 900, early generation 93. Okay, in that kind of cars, when the front suspension is worn out, to replace the shocks, to replace the lower suspension bushings, to replace the ball joints, to replace the upper strut mounts, reach maybe about $1,000 or something like that. Now, if you see the value of that car on the street, a very nice one is going to be less than $3,000. Now, the person who drives that car normally do not have $1,000 to put on the suspension on a $3,000 car, because the transmission leaks, because it need many little things that keep adding. So in that case, yes, a used suspension from a good wrecking yard, you can get the complete suspension, because the person, the owner, is not a picky person. He just wants the car in normal running condition to go to work and to support the family. Now, if you're the kind of person who wants to use that car to be running uphill on the mountains every weekend, I am that kind of guy with my 900, my SPG. In my case, I put everything the best, and I invest a lot of money on tires, on brakes, on everything that, just for my 3 hours of pleasure on the weekend. But that's my personal case. If I'm going to start driving a car just to go from the house to the work and that kind of thing, just used parts are good in that case.
Okay.
It depends about labor. For example, another kind of thing. Whenever you are going to do a transmission, to have a transmission with a bad internal parts of the transmission, do not have reverse, a typical case. So it means it's wearing out inside. What do I do? Just to talk to the guy who sell the transmissions. Since there are many transmissions on the market, they are very cheap. To rebuild the transmission for that car, we're talking about the new generation 900 or the early generation 93. That's a Japanese transmission. It's IC.
Oh, wow.
Like a Toyota type. Don't tell anybody. So that kind of thing, that kind of transmission is very inexpensive. Use. So
again, so you're saying, and with 4 mills, I'm mentioning them as many other yards, but 4 mills, I think they have a good guarantee. If a part's not good, they'll replace it. I think it's 30 or 60 days.
That's correct. Normally, it's 90 days warranty on that.
Okay.
What happens is on the auto repair shop, the good point is if you're the person who are going to replace your own suspension or your own transmission, it's excellent to go on that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I'm going to replace, for example, the front suspension on that car, I'm going to charge you 4 hours. And 4 hours at 118, if the suspension is not good or something, of course, I'm going to take a visual inspection.
Yeah.
But in a transmission, you don't know if it's going to be a worse transmission or a better transmission. You need to trust the seller. So when you're going to be looking for used parts, the very easy advice is to call the place who has 2 or 3 parts alike. So they have 3 cars, for example, 100,000 miles, 150,000 miles, 80,000 miles. When you ask for the transmission, they're going to give you the price for the highest mileage cheaper.
Right.
Because they know that you're going to be shopping.
Yes.
Now, when you agree, for example, the highest price is 150,000 miles, cheaper transmission, about $500, then you must talk to him and say, hey, do you have something better? Do you have something with low mileage? Oh, yes, we do. And it's this kind of transmission with 60,000 miles. 60,000 miles, yes, it was from an old lady and was already at the tube.
Right.
But when they sell the part to you, on the invoice, it shows the mileage. So they're not going to tell you things like that. They're going to tell you the transmission is coming from this car with this kind of mileage at the time of the impact or when they remove it. So that transmission, instead of $500, maybe you can pay $600, and the guy is very happy because he make more money for the same product. So when you are going to save money with used parts, go to the place where they have more than one. Because if the transmission is not good and you are going to do it by yourself, then you are going to, hey, you know what? This transmission do not have third gear. Okay, try this one. And that's free on 90 days.
Okay.
What happens is, if they have only one transmission for a Saab and they have 20 Toyotas, when you are going to give it back the transmission for the Saab, okay, perfect, you have $500 credit, pick up whatever you want. Hey, but I need a transmission. I'm sorry. What happened is the policy is exchange, or you can pick up, for example, 20 tires for a Toyota for the same price. That's a rule.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we need to understand how the business works, instead to be going just shopping for the cheapest one, and not always the cheapest one. The cheapest one is the best. Especially you have to pay for the labor.
Right.
Ask for the part with the warranty. Always ask for that, and that's a smart way how to go for used parts. Related about engine components. On engine components, if you need to do, for example, the cylinder head gasket, and you know that the turbo the cylinder head gasket mix the oil, or you have some kind of problem, or some kind of cars with a starvation of oil, or you can insert your finger on the exhaust pipe and everything is black with oil. Instead to spend your money on the head gasket, and the machine shop is about 1,800, something like that, spend the same amount of money to replace the engine with a low mileage with a turbo. So you are going to have the bottom part as well, because when you do the upper part, you have a beautiful, perfect valves and everything. And then the bottom end is going to be weak. So maybe if you go to the wrecking yards, you're going to see cars with a brand new cylinder head, and the bottom end looks old, and that's why the car is on the junkyard. Because the owner said, I cannot put another one. Because typical advice, let's do the head gasket, replace the head, the engine runs, 1 week later, you have a clack, clack, clack underneath. Oh, you need to replace the engine.
You know, this brings up a good question. Okay. What I've noticed, because I've talked to a lot of sellers on SaabNet, and I find this interesting. Like, I like Stacy a lot. Stacy's selling a 9.5. She just bought a Mercedes, brand new Mercedes. And so she has a 9.3. We're talking about 9.3. She has a 9.3 2005 with 150,000 miles. Mm-hmm. She's kept really good care of the car, except, and I see this a lot. It's interesting. When she decided to get the new car, she didn't fix. There's a leak in the transmission hose, or there's a leak in. Maybe Scott, you can look at the ad. There's a leak in the something to do with the transmission. There's a leak. She said it could be sealed or something else. She said the quick fix was to seal it. Now, what I said to her is, I might be interested in that car. We're supposed to talk tomorrow. So this is interesting that you brought this up. Some sellers, and I've always wondered why they do this. It sounds like they've kept the car, and then at a certain point, something breaks, and they decide to sell it, but they're selling it in part because it's also broken. So sometimes you can get a great deal. You could really benefit. And sometimes I think it might be a caution. So my question to you is, when is it a benefit they didn't fix it, and it means it's going to be a great buy? And when is it a caution they didn't fix it? When you're talking to a seller, what do you want to know? Like, let's talk about a 9.3.
Hey, Glenn, let me give the details of the car that you're talking about.
Yeah, please. Thanks, Scott.
It's a 2005 Saab 9.3 that was posted on January 29th. It's automatic transmission with 149,000 miles. She's asking $4,000 or best offer, and the leak that you mentioned the leak is coming from the power steering pump.
Thank you.
Yeah, but otherwise, the rest of the ad looks pretty good.
Okay.
So she's a motivated seller, and from talking to her, I like her a lot. It sounds like a lot of people hear that and they pull back because it's a caution. What does that mean? Now, from talking to her, I feel like I get a good sense, and this is where you got to read the seller. I get a sense she's really big. She loves this car. And she told me that after driving a BMW, a Volvo, that was only the Mercedes. So I know she's invested. I get a good sense. And this is where you got to read the seller. What about, in this situation, what about what Scott was saying? Is that leak a concern? Like, she told me you could have that sealed inexpensively. What's your take on that car? Let's go to a 2005 9.3. It's in very good shape. Give us your take on that. What's relevant? Is that a real concern? Or would you look past that in terms of buying it?
To Scott or to me?
What's that?
Yeah, to you, Walter. If this car, as we described,
okay.
Let me describe it to you. I'll read it to you. The description is...
I hear that. Scott, excuse me. Is that the only thing on the car? Only the power steering pump?
Yeah, that's the only negative thing that she...
Okay, I can tell you that car is in very good condition, and you have 2 ways to do on that. Number one, if you are like me, a cheap old guy, what I will do is to replace the heater hoses located on top of the transmission, and then keep the car leaking like that, because the only damage is going to be some kind of engine oil on top of the hoses. That's my case. If you are the kind of guy who want to do some things by yourself, you can get the seals to remove the 6-volt additive, 4 or 5 volts, to remove the parts, replace the seals, and they sell it maybe for about 40 bucks. Now, if you're the kind of guy who want to pay someone to replace it, in that case, like me, it's going to be maybe about $800 with a 2 years warranty with a new part. So that kind of leak is not really relevant for me because almost half of my customers, they have leaks here and there.
Okay.
So we're not, that's again, remember this. My goal is to keep the Saabs alive, not to keep perfect cars. If you can live, you can purchase that car, or the same person, if she loves the car, just talk to the mechanic and say, hey, you know what? Let's assume the car is for your daughter. Let's assume that your daughter is going to make a cross-country trip with the car. Let's assume that there is not too much money. What can you do to make her a ride to San Francisco from Miami? Then the mechanic need to ask, because that's a realistic question. That's a realistic thing. The mechanic will say, okay, you know what, if it's my own car, or in that way, what I will do without money is to replace the hoses. There are 2 hoses, maybe about 40 bucks.
Wow.
The coolant hoses, because the coolant hoses get degraded by the oil. And it takes maybe about 4 or 5 years again to replace the hoses if you do not want to fix the leak. And then just, you can make many trips like that. That's what I do here, and I keep, as I told you, $1,000 cars running very good.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, so okay.
That's a personal challenge. It's not about to start making money, because yes, we can do it in that way, but we present to the customer about the options.
And that's why in the LA area, I want to recommend you guys, if you're buying a Saab, go to Walter. He doesn't charge. He'll go through it, you know, tail to front, all through the car.
Yeah, the inspection is free.
It's a remarkable offer. They don't. I haven't met one station, not one mechanic that offers that, Walter. That's one of a kind. Okay, another question here. On the 9.3, I was reading all these reviews today of people bragging how good this 550 synthetic was. And I talked to a guy in Ithaca today, a Saab mechanic, and he was saying on the East Coast that this 550, it lubricates the engine better as we're coming into warmer weather. He thought it's really good for the turbo. What about viscosity? I know you're in LA, but what would you want to say to people about viscosity? The Saab owner's manual gives you a few different choices. What would you want to say about viscosity? And yeah, I know we covered synthetic before, but this 550, I just noticed a lot of people were just saying it was so great. What's your comment about? Now we're moving into spring on the East Coast. I know your weather's not going to change too much, but for the people on the East Coast, you know, we're coming out of a very cold season. And again, the man in Ithaca, New York, said to me he thinks this is a much better choice coming into the warmer weather. 550 would protect the engine, lubricated. And of course, the concern for some people is that, you know, there's a concern about sludge. There's also a concern about the turbo burning out, and that better lubrication is great. That's the consensus. So what would you want to say, viscosity, turbo, and the value of, you know, anything you want to say about oil, which you started out at the beginning of the show by saying that cheap oil is a bad idea.
Well, let's start with analogies on that. Talking about viscosity, 0 is normal water. This kind of thing is 0. Then when you have a honey at room temperature in Los Angeles in summer, it's 90. Just cooking oil, the normal cooking oil coal, the one in the bottle that you are going to do on your French fries, that kind of oil maybe is going to be 15, 20. The cooking oil, when it's frying there, when it's boiling with the fries and everything, it's going to be almost 5 or less. Now, what it means is kind of thing. The science for the lubricant's name is tribology. And the oil change a lot lately. We used to know, for guys like you and I, sometimes at the beginning with the synthetic oils, oh, you know what, you should not mix because the oil is going to have a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Now the oil additives, now the way how do they make the oils, it changed. Used to be, oh, change the oil once every 6 months, even if you do not use the car. Well, everything that changed. The kind of oil that we use here, that we sell here, is Castrol GTX 20W50. GTX 20W50, that's mineral oil to change every 3 up to 4,000 miles. That's a regular, typical dinosaur oil for any kind of typical Saab that you do not abuse. So that's a typical oil change that we do here. Then is coming the synthetic oil. Synthetic oil, it has a longer life. Synthetic oil, it has a, I can tell it's a more slippery oil. Remember, I'm not talking about a technical kind of things with friction coefficient. We're talking about the things to understand quick, understand easy. It's a table conversation. So that kind of oil, the one I use here, is Mobile 1 15W50. Mobile 1 15W50. For why I use that, and I know there are people, engineers, and they said, oh, it's very high viscosity because that's not the best. Yes. The car, from my point of view, when the car is new and you have warranty from the car maker, any kind of car maker, use whatever they said. So they said 1030, 1040, 540. Okay, that's fine. Once the warranty is over, any kind of bill, you have to pay for it, not the warranty. So remember, factory said for you and Scott and for me, factory said baby food or mom's milk. Now for Scott mileage, for your mileage or my mileage, we have a different necessities. And that's why there are different kind of oil that they sell. You can go to Pep Boys and you can see a lot of oil. And you can open the hood and you can see you can see a sticker on there. Use only 1030. When you go to the places where they do quick oil changes, in order to avoid any kind of liability, if you have a high-end engine, for example, a vegan, and they check on the computer, oh, it should be 530. They're going to use a 530. That's very thin oil.
Yeah.
And that vegan, it has 150,000 miles of abuse, because I cannot see any vegan without abuse. You know, Scott, vegan Raeros, a stick shift, I cannot see anyone without abuse.
I think that's the way Saab. I mean, Saab drivers are. A long time ago, there was a stat in Massachusetts. They were checking the speed on for drivers on the highway, and Saab drivers had the fastest average speed. I forget what it was, but it was quite high. And
yes.
I think on stick shifts, classic 900s, 9000s, 93 Vigans, the 93 sedans, even the 95s. I mean, the people with manual transmissions tend to be drivers, and they push their cars. And I know me, I have a 92X Aero, and with a 5-speed stick shift. And I was thinking about what you said the other day in the last show about not downshifting to save the engine. And I was driving, and I drive my car pretty hard. And when when I'm slowing down, I downshift all the time, because I'm a more aggressive driver, and I don't mind. This is why I have the car, is to have fun and drive it and enjoy it.
You're right, Scott. The thing here is, when I tell about do not downshift, the kind of thing, it's because we're talking a normal transportation car that you need to be something, you need to have something reliable. So it means something reliable. Yes, you can downshift it, you can do that kind of thing. If later it starts popping out of gear, yes, you're going to keep going on that. And the point is sometimes you are not going to afford to keep the car, and the car ends on the junkyard. Remember, the goal here is to keep as many Saab alive, even the $1,000 Saabs. That's my idea, that's my dream. That's what I have in my blood, just Saab. And to keep the cars running good. Yes, when we compete on the 24 hours of lemons with the Saabs, we downshift a lot. That's why we've been using another transmission, another engine to change at nighttime, because those kind of things do not last over there. Those being a $300 cars, $400 cars. Now, for your normal use and abuse on your car, that's fine, because you understand that everything has a price. You are going to enjoy that smile. You are going to continue for a week when you've been downshifting to the mountain. The same as I do with my car, my SPG, my rat. What happened is I have another transmission as a spare. That's what I have in my own car. And in my own car, if I break it, the transmission, that's fine, because with the transmission, I'm going to replace also the crankshaft from the 9000. So it's going to be a stroker. I'm going to put the flywheel from the 9000, the clutch from the 9000, and I'm going to have more fun. Now, on my point of view, if I do not break my transmission, I'm not going to do the work. And that's why I drive very, very hard my own car. Because
So, Walter,
I have everything as a spare.
Walter, you were mentioning, we kind of went on a tangent, but you were mentioning that, you've never seen a Vigan without abuse, and you're talking about the oil. And if they go take it to an oil shop, and they look it up in the computer, and I forget what you said, it's 5W30 that they, or whatever it is. But so if you've got a Vigan with abuse, what kind of oil, with somewhat high mileage, what kind of oil are you going to recommend?
15W50, that's the oil that I suggest. And by rule, I demand the driver to check the fluids every time when he's going to fill up the tank every 300 miles. I demand to check the oil. Look, I do not ask, just check the oil. No, no, no. If I'm going to keep the car alive, I want you to do your part. Otherwise, it's going to be the typical case, oh, I did my oil change and now I have a clack. Oh, the place they just do not refill my engine. No, they put a can of engine oil that went all the way through the exhaust pipe. The engine was without oil, and they do not open the hood at all, because they assuming it's the same car that they purchased 10 years ago. So that's the point.
But I want to say that's such an interesting awareness, that you go to an oil place and they're looking at a computer that shows the original suggested oil, and you're saying that's not only outdated, it could put your car in jeopardy.
Well, yes. What happened is, from my point of view, I'm talking about me, about the way how I taking care of so many Saabs. So right here that we do is each one of the drivers, not only the owner, because the car is driven by the wife and the son. I tell the person who's paying here, you know what? Call them and tell them to check the fluids. I take that kind of thing. Oh, but they know. No, just call them and tell them. In the paper, on the invoice, besides that, they say at the bottom with the printer, check all the fluids often. Do you understand? Because we're dealing with Saabs.
So I just checked my transmission fluid. I have a 2009 5. Initially it was sort of dark or blackish. That was about 1.5 years ago. I changed it three to four times, and for the last year it's been very pink when I check it. Is that what you want? Basically, you want a very pinkish color in your transmission.
Well, it depends about what kind of oil. On your car, they use transmission oil because the transmission oil is a Toyota oil because it's a Toyota transmission.
Mm.
So that we do here is instead to do the transmission flush, I prefer to have the drain and refill.
Ah, yeah, that's what I thought.
Drain and refill that we do is drain 1/3 of the capacity, and we refill 1/3 of the capacity, and nothing bad could happen, for sure. I saw cases when the car had a very dirty transmission fluid, so it means, but the transmission fluid is black. That kind of suspension thing, like it makes the oil black, is equivalent to any kind of car with a black dust on the front brakes.
Huh.
That's the friction residue. That kind of thing on the wheel stays stuck on the wheel, on the tires, something like that. On the automatic transmission, you have a similar kind of thing. Those are the clutch package. You have the friction. So when that part starts wearing out, release a very little kind of, if it's dry, it's going to be the powder, but that kind of thing stays in suspension. So that's what it means. When you smell the oil and it smells burn, it means overheat. So if you have that kind of transmission and you are a very hard driver and you want to say, okay, oh, the transmission is very dirty, let's sell a complete transmission service. They hook up the instrument and they show you it's a perfect clean fluid.
Oh, right, yes, yeah.
Now, you are going from here to San Francisco, and in the grapevine, the transmission quit. It started smoking and everything. Why? Because every time when the transmission oil is dark or black, it means the internal part of the friction are wearing out. So you have a clamping power like this, and always you have a friction like this. When the system is wore out, even with the kind of thing, do not grab too much. Plus, the new oil is always slippery. So when you want to press the gas, going uphill, the transmission starts slipping, and everything goes kaput. That's why what I suggest is not to have a perfect clean fluid.
Yes, yeah.
I want a normal, reliable transportation car. Transportation reliable.
Yeah.
That's my goal. Yes.
What they try to do is upsell you this service that they say you need, but you're saying you don't need to pay a lot more. That just drain it.
Well, what happened is this: according to the normal way to sell the service, one thing or another, about the dealerships, about any kind of place, they sell, let's replace, because factory recommend to replace.
Yeah.
Now, if the car is without warranty and something happens there, who's going to pay for the bill? See my question? Now, if you are not going to pay for the bill, or the car going straight to the junkyard or to the scrap yard, because you try to keep your car just following that kind of things, I think it's not fair for you. And that's the reason why when I have some people, some customers say, oh, I want to do this and this and that. You know what? Take it to the dealership, take it to Jiffy Lube. I do not feel good to work on your car, because that's the kind of person that even if I'm going to tell them, open the hood and check the fluids, they're going to tell me why, because you are responsible, you did my last oil change. I don't need that kind of aggravation.
Right.
I work with people like you, like many Saab owners that understand. If I tell you, you know what, if you have a peak of sugar, well, avoid the donuts in the morning. And they follow directions.
Right.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
That's the way how we have the reputation to use the common sense. And to take Carly my own one.
I want to encourage now at this point. I'm going to give you my contact, but if you have a question for Walter, and you want to, Walter offered last time he would, even if you're in Europe watching this or you're anywhere in the country, Walter, at no charge, will give you feedback. Walter, how could people be in touch with you? And particularly, since we're talking about 9.3s, you have a question. You have a 9.3, you're having some chronic or acute problem, or you want to buy something on Saabnet, and you're wondering, should I buy it? You could call Walter. You could be in touch. Walter, how could they be in touch with you to get the right solution?
The easy way is going to be to call me. Just be ready with pen and paper when you are going to call me to take notes, because what I want you to do is to follow directions step by step without jumping into conclusions. Sometimes the person who called, they know a lot about cars. Sometimes they have no idea about cars. I don't know what that kind of level is. So I prefer to tell it step by step from the practical side. My phone number is 310-666-2406. 310-666-2406. And you can reach me at any time, because at night, if it's 3 in the morning or something like that, and if somebody needs help, I answer. I have people calling from Europe, from Latin America, from the East Coast. The only thing that I ask is, number one, to tell me exactly what happened. So if you're the father and your daughter is the one that had the clack, 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 tell your daughter to call me, because she's going to be close to the car. I do not want to start explain with my accent. To tell something to you, you assume it's something else, and then it's going to be worse. That's why I want to talk to the person who is with the car. Yes, Glenn?
I just was going to say that your Irish accent doesn't bother me, Scott.
Oh, yes.
And that you have a better policy than the Pope in terms of responding to people.
Yes, that's one of the things.
Yeah.
Y ahora, si alguien quiere hablar en español, bueno, o castellano, es mucho más fácil por mí para poder verlo en esa manera.
Exactly. Oh, and I want to say to you guys, if you want something reviewed, I'm going to send stuff to Walter and also Chris Ribbon. If you go to Vermont under Saabnet, you go to mechanics. Chris is my personal mechanic. He's amazing. He's on the East Coast, and he's kind of like Walter, very similar philosophical base. And I'm going to be reviewing tires, and I'm also going to be reviewing sheepskin seat covers for comfort, and and also in the heat, it's supposed to be incredible for the body. And I actually talked to the guy who put the first sheepskin covers into the first Boeing 707. So I'm going to be reviewing a whole bunch of stuff. I want Walter to comment on, particularly if you're heading into your next 100,000 miles or going over 200,000 miles. When does it make sense? Or as Scott was saying, if you want to drive your car, all out, when does it make sense to invest in a high performance part? Like, those are things I want to get into. And so it's Glenn, Glenn, Glenn.vibrantliving@gmail.com, Glenn.vibrantliving@gmail.com. By the way, if you know a mechanic like Walter, like I was reading about some mechanics in Indiana, let them know we're doing this. We want to get this conversation going, and also we want to make sure that your car is covered by people who are truly knowledgeable, and you're not getting roped into things like this transmission flush that could potentially not be good for the car, and also it costs a lot of money. A lot of these hypey things are out there, and they sell it to you as if it's the miracle drug, and they don't really educate you. So Walter, you're outstanding that way. So 413-586-5898, 413 area code 586-5898. I don't answer my phone 24 hours a day like Walter, but I do during the day. So if I'm not here, you can always call Walter. But no, I'm looking to review things, and also I want to hear about people around the country that you feel are outstanding Saab mechanics. And I want to encourage. Oh, I want to bring back something, by the way. I want to bring back, we wave at each other. When I first got my Saab, I never passed a Saab without a serious wave. What happened? How can we bring back waving? That's my question today. What happened to the Saab wave? Scott, are we going to bring that back? Sure.
Yeah, when I first got my first Saab in 1988,
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Saab owners not only wave, but they flash their headlights. Just,
Wow.
they were some of the most unique cars on the roads, and there was a real community. Even if we weren't, even if that was even before we were connected on the internet, and there was still a community just by being a Saab owner and passing another Saab owner on the road. So I don't know. It just, people stopped doing it. I would love to see it come back. And I think the best way to do it is just start doing it ourselves, flash and wave, and maybe they'll see and start doing it themselves too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I love the show. I just see that, it's fun. I just want to say something about the Saab Turbo. I've never driven with another turbo, but when I have people in my car and I hit my turbo, I don't even have a high pressure turbo. To this day, I love turning the pedal down and having that and taking off. It's the most, to this day, it's so much fun. It's just a really, I don't know, I think it's the most fun car to drive that I've ever driven. And I encourage you, if you're new to Saab, or, I guess Scott was saying a week ago that we got like 10, 15 years to go. And I was really inspired about that notion that these cars, take it to a mechanic like Walter at The Right Solution or Chris from Risen Saab in Vermont. Just keep up with it. And don't get distracted by all this hypey technology or by the quick change, let's throw in a new part. Listen to this series, enjoy your Saab, share your experience with us. Come on, or write us a letter. We'll share it with the Saab community. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Walter. And we'll be with you again with our next episode of the Saab and Travel Show. I'm Glenn Brooks. Thanks very much for watching and tuning in and being part of our Saab family.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks very much, Glenn. It's good to see you, Walter.
Thank you, Scott. Take care.
We'll see you when you come back from Peru.
Oh, yes.
We'll set up another time.
I live in by the 10.
We'll contact you for the next show, and have a blessed trip, Walter.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be an excellent place to do things over there.
No, that's good. We'll want to hear about that when you come back.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks.